Half Forgotten History is presented by State Farm. Getting great car or home insurance from State Farm at a surprisingly great rate? Well, that's just like talking to the biggest names in NFL history and hearing their untold stories. It's the real deal. So choose insurance that always brings its A game. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
All of a sudden, Glenn Cadrez goes, "Hell yeah, we're thinking about it. Hell yeah."
Glenn Cadrez had a little Arnold Schwarzenegger in him. Yeah, we're thinking about it. Yeah, for sure.
I lift things up, I put them down.
Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another edition of Half Forgotten History. By this time, you know the drill. We pour a cocktail, preferably Maker's Mark, sit down and share great stories with some of the greatest names in the history of the NFL.
Well, our guest today on Half Forgotten History is a guy, for lack of a better term, was my work wife for 15 years. He was a 12-year NFL veteran, 3-time Pro Bowler, 3-time Super Bowl champ, and the coiner of the phrase, "I only show up to Super Bowls when we're going to win." He never lost one of the big games. Ladies and gentlemen, longtime NFL analyst, NFL player, one of my best friends, Mark Schlereth. What's up, big boy?
What is it? Half Forgotten History? Hey, cheers to you. This is the perfect show for me because I always say I walk out of my kitchen to the garage and I just stand there. I'm like, yep, this is my garage. All right, I'm going back in the kitchen now. Like, I can't remember why I walked out there ever.
Why was I going to the garage?
Yeah, I don't have any idea why I just stepped out into my garage, but here I am. Hi, cars. Okay, going back to the kitchen.
So this is why we do this show, to help you remember some of the great things that happened in the history of the NFL and enjoy a cocktail and telling some of the great stories that no one has ever heard. Today, we're focusing on Super Bowl 42. And as a backdrop, people need to understand, if they've forgotten, that was one of the great upsets of all time when the New York Giants, who were the 6th seed in the playoffs, came in and somehow found a way to beat the Patriots and end their unbeaten season, thus giving New England the worst 18-1 season in the history of the NFL. And the reason that Mark is a perfect guy to talk about this is because of your own frickin' history in the NFL. 3 times you started a season with a double-digit win column before you ended up with a loss, right?
Yeah, and it was always interesting because I always said that nobody would ever go through an NFL season undefeated. I just didn't think it was a possibility because of all the things that happen and then the pressure that builds. And I always tell the story about what we joke around all the time, you and I, about Glenn Cadrez. And you get
I was wondering how long in the show before that name was going to come up.
Right. So Glenn Cadrez was a great special teams player, played for a long time in the National Football League. Every week as you go through these undefeated things, I started in Washington one season, 11-0, started in Denver, 13-0. But every week, more and more people start to show up in your locker room during the open locker room. And all of a sudden you see people that you only have seen on television, right? You see guys, reporters from other places in the country, and you start to, it just builds every week. And every week guys either hide in the training room because they don't want to talk, or they hide in the weight room. And eventually, you can't get away from the question, how long can you guys go undefeated? Can you go
looming.
Right. And I mean, it's not only the reporters, it's your own family. Like, you're getting calls from your sister, or you're getting calls from your brother-in-law, or hey, how long can you go to the restaurant with your wife, and they're like, the waiters taking your order, go, by the way, do you guys can do this, go undefeated? You're like, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. And you keep saying the same thing over and over again. Hey, it's one game at a time. All the cliche bullshit that you always use, right? Right. And finally, we're all sitting around in the locker room. It's we're going into week 13.
And you're playing the Giants, right? Who were terrible that year.
The Giants, right? I mean, they got a bunch. I think, was it Graham playing quarterback for that? I can't even remember.
I think it was Kent Graham out of Ohio State. You're exactly right. Ken Graham.
We're all sitting there, everybody's towing the company line, and everybody's saying, hey, one game at a time, and we're just focused on the Giants. The Giants are a good team, and if we don't bring our A game, all the stuff that you don't really believe, but you have to say, like, right. You want to just say, yeah, we're going to whip their ass. They're not very good, right?
Exactly. They stink. We're really good.
Right. So we're all sitting there, and everybody's towing the company line. All of a sudden, Glenn Cadrez goes, at the top of his lungs in the locker room, hell yeah, we're thinking about it. Hell yeah. And he's just like, yeah, we want to go undefeated. Yeah, we're thinking about it. And everybody's just like, oh my God, you can't say that. You cannot. And so we ended
By the way,
up
little known fact there, Snake. Apparently, Glenn Cadrez had a little Arnold Schwarzenegger in him. Yeah, we're thinking about it. Yeah, for sure.
I lift things up, I put them down. Yeah, so I mean, he goes off, and we're all like, "You can't do that." And then we fly out there and get our ass beat by the Giants. So we started, 13-0, and the Giants took us down. They're the ones that took us down. It was unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
It's always the Giants. That's what we've just learned. It's always the Giants.
100% of the time. No, when I started 11-0, it was the Cowboys, by the way. They got us. It was the Cowboys.
Well, at least they're winning. At least they're winning something.
Yeah.
Because they're not winning much of anything else right now. So that's the preface why you're the perfect guy to tell this story. Because heading into Super Bowl 42, look, they played week 17 of the regular season. I think it was 35-31. In that game, Brady threw for a touchdown pass 50, which broke the record that Manning had at 49. And again, Peyton would go on to subsequently break that a few years later. And Randy Moss, I think, caught his 20th touchdown catch, which was the new record. So they had already done it. So that week, the Super Bowl was in Glendale out in Arizona, and it felt like a coronation, right? The entire week felt like it was just going to be an inevitable crowning of the Patriots as Bill Belichick's double middle finger tour to the world after Spygate.
It really did, and it was interesting. We sat there during a press conference where Tom Brady, I think it was Tom Brady with the long locks, the flowing locks at that point. I think was the Tom Brady. When he was feeling himself as sort of a European model at the time. Exactly. So that was the phase he was going through. And I'll never forget, was it Plexico Burress that predicted the Giants were going to win 17-14? And I'll never forget, there was almost, and it's so non-Brady-esque, but it just caught him off guard.
Yeah.
He's so stoic all the time, and he's so prepared. And, when you talk to him, he's never, ever kind of lets his guard down. And he gives you great stuff, but he's very measured in everything that he says. And he just looked and he just laughed. He was like, "Really? We're only going to score 14?" And you and I are sitting there going, "Oh shit!" Like, "Oh snap!" Like, can you believe
that was the most Brady had ever sort of let his guard down to that point.
Right. It was completely out of character for him, and it was the first time I think during the week that you and I talked about where like, do they have a chance? It was like, it was one of those things like do they really have a chance here? So it was a really interesting thing, but you're right. Everybody was just like, oh my gosh, the Patriots are going 19-0. They're going to sweep this thing.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that too, Mark, is people forget Brady got beat up in the AFC Championship game that year. And he showed up walking around Manhattan after the game and went to a nightclub called Butter, and he had a walking boot on. Now, can you imagine if that wasn't Tom Brady and the Patriots, who'd already won a bunch of Super Bowls and had already been through this, and there's a picture of him in a walking boot going out to a nightclub called Butter, of all things, how differently people would have reacted if it was any other quarterback?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Because, obviously he's got the hall pass, and rightfully so. The guy's been phenomenal. There's no question. But, yeah, that would have been but was he married at the time? He was with Giselle for sure. I'm not sure if they were officially hitched. Yeah. So, but you're right. He was, he was touring the modeling scene. He was doing modeling shoes. So yes. He was on his Zoolander phase, basically, for lack of a better term. Exactly. So that's the premise, right? So obviously, when we get to the game, things change dramatically, and there's something happened that also changed dramatically, which forced me to rethink our friendship. And this seems like a perfect time to take a break, fill your glass, and get ready for a story you may have never heard about what happened in Super Bowl 42.
Here at Half Forgotten History, our surprisingly great conversations are brought to you by State Farm. State Farm agents provide personalized service so you can customize your insurance to fit your needs, like our Hall of Fame guest choosing the perfect never-before-told story to share with our listeners. Look, you need a team that supports you and gets you, and State Farm's got a great one. In addition to agents, the award-winning mobile app helps manage coverage, pay bills, file claims, and more. With a great price and even greater service, State Farm goes from strength to strength. Choose insurance that always brings its A game. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Here in the East Coast, and quite frankly across the country, McDonald's just isn't this large global restaurant. It's a local one too. Much in the same way these Hall of Fame athletes that you see me talking to are also people that live and work in the communities and towns where they are. McDonald's are owned and operated by people that live in those communities. And when you eat at a McDonald's, you're supporting a local business. You might even be supporting your neighbor's business. And McDonald's franchises also care about the communities that they're in. That's why they give back to the local Ronald McDonald chapter houses and why they help first responders, like when they gave hot, fresh meals to those out there fighting the devastation of Hurricane Laura. When you own a McDonald's, you are committed to serving the community where you do business. McDonald's, serving here.
Okay, we are back and ready to roll. So it's game day, Super Bowl 42 in Glendale, Arizona. Mark and I had done some pregame stuff for SportsCenter, and then you flew home. You flew home to watch it on your couch. I had to stick around because I had to do postgame. And for people that don't know how postgame at the Super Bowl works, halfway through the fourth quarter, they gather everybody who's been credentialed to get on the field. They put these like yellow, like safety reflector vests. You look like the school crossing guard at an elementary school. Come on, kids, come on through. You're wearing these vests so everybody knows you're credentialed and you're allowed to be on the field. Well, it was a tight game. And the Patriots had just scored, I think, to go up 14-10 with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So I'm like, wait a minute. We have to leave where I'm watching the game now and go down into the bowels of the stadium so we can get onto the field. And I call you and said, Mark, I'm in deep shit right now. I have no idea what's going to happen. So I need you to do me a favor. And as always, because he's my guy, he's like, no problem. What do you need? I said, stay on the phone with me and talk me through everything that's going on through this final drive so I know what's happening. You're like, oh, okay, great, got it. So they kick off, the Patriots do to the Giants, and you say, okay, blah, 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 Giants have got the ball. And the first thing out of your mouth was what?
I don't know. What was it?
You started telling me what the blocking scheme was. Like, okay, well, it looks like they're in a two-man over, double under, blah, blah. And I'm like, no one gives a shit. Here's what I need you to do. You need to, when the ball is hiked from the center to the quarterback, follow that olive-style football and let me know where it goes. That's all I need, right? That's all I needed.
I've got to tell you, it's been so funny, my transition from being a studio analyst to a game analyst, and how much more expansive my look is when it comes to watching the game, how much more globally I think of the game now. So I always viewed it, and you view the game through the lens with which you played it. So you always view it with, this offensive line lens and what's going on in the line of scrimmage. And it's really been hard for me to transition to actually watch the ball. So as a player, when I would watch, like I'm playing against the defense, I'm playing against, Warren Sapp or whoever I'm playing against, right? You'd study that player and you'd study the scheme, the front seven. And as soon as you would see whatever you needed to see, like the running back broke out on a 19 handoff or whatever, and then I just fast forward through it. Like I didn't care if he broke a tackle or whatever. I just want to see the initial. So all that stuff, I never watched the ball as a player. You just study the game. So I'm constantly just drawn into the front seven. And everything else, wherever the ball goes, I don't even care. I just want to see what they're doing.
You had your job. You had your job.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, you brought up Warren Sapp. Side note, we have to tell the story now, right? We have to tell the story. For whatever reason, Warren Sapp's Hall of Fame player. There's no question about it. He's awesome. You owned him. You owned him. In fact, you beat him up once so bad, he said something to you at the end of the game as an excuse. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, he had said, man, I was coming off I had no feeling in my foot. I had a back injury. I had to end up getting back surgery, and I had a really, my knee was really bulky, and
29 surgeries on your knees will do that.
Whipped his ass is a relative term. I don't know. I don't know that anybody whipped.
You controlled him,
right? But he came up to say after the game, he goes, "You were lucky today. My wrist was sore," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah." He really
shut up, fool.
You're gonna tell that to me? Now, Warren and I had some battle. I knew Warren was going to be great. I played him as a rookie, and this was before he really learned how to play. And most guys, as young players, don't know how to pass rush at the NFL level, because most guys can just physically come in and dominate in the college level. And you're not going to, I'm the world's strongest human. You're not going to physically dominate me, even though I didn't weigh that much.
This is true. You should see you fell into the gene pool, by the way. I mean, You should see pictures of your dad, who was 80 now or 78?
81.
81, and he's still bench pressing like a Buick. It's freaking ridiculous.
I guarantee you my dad could probably max, like, he's not what he once was, but in his 70s, you still could bench press 300 pounds in late 70s. I mean, I guarantee you he could still do probably 6 reps with 225 at 81. I mean, the guy is
it's ridiculous.
He's a freak show. So, most of the guys just run into you, which is like, that's my game. Please run into me, because you're not.
Don't make me move.
Right. But when I played him as a rookie, and I'll never forget leaving, because I could usually come off the ball and move guys off the ball and stuff. And he was like running into, and he wasn't muscular. He's just kind of, it's Warren Sapp, right? But dude, he was stout. And I never forget playing that game. We beat Tampa. It was his rookie year, so it was in Denver in 1995. Coming off that game going, that kid's going to be really good someday, like really, really good someday.
I just had to get in the story. You there with a bad back, 29 knee surgeries. You can't feel anything. Well, my wrist was sore. Otherwise, I really would have kicked your ass. Yeah. So anyway, we move on. The whole point of that story being, I have no freaking idea. But back to Super Bowl 42. So you finally figured out not to just watch the blocking schemes, you're watching the ball. And he was doing a great job. Mark, you were doing a great job.
Thank you.
Now, we're not gonna give this away yet, but there was a certain play that happened in this game, and as I'm walking into the bowels of the stadium, you described it thusly. All right, Eli, back to pass, scrambling around, complete first down. We move on. Great. So finally, I get into the stadium, and there's a monitor up in the upper left corner of where we're all there. And I say to you on the phone, Mark, I see it. I got it. I'm good. You walk me through this. I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon. And you hang up. Great. So I see Plexico Burress in the final seconds catch what is going to be the game-winning touchdown, ending the Patriots' chances at the first unbeaten season in a 16-game regular season and playoffs. I get it, the Miami Dolphins. Murphy Morris, shut up. We don't want to hear from you right now. So I say to myself, that's the guy. I'm going to go talk to Plexico Burress. I'm going to run on that friggin' field, and I'm going to get the one-on-one with the guy who not only scored the touchdown to stop the Patriots' unbeaten season, but who predicted that they were going to beat the Patriots and gave him the score, which was pretty accurate. I think he said 21-17 instead of 17-14. It was close, right? It was close. So the game ends, and I haul ass to Plexico Burress. And I look around, and I'm the only guy standing next to Plexico Burress.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you helped me get the one-on-one interview with Plexico Burress, which didn't matter for a reason. And as a reporter, I'm like, this is amazing. This interview is going to run forever. It's going to run for infamy. This will be the greatest interview I've ever done. I'm so proud of myself, and I'm feeling fucking great. And then I'm walking towards where everybody else is, and I see like 800 reporters and cameras around David Tyree. And the first thought I had was, why the hell are they talking to that special team scrub? And now, Mark, you may fill in the rest of the story.
So I was amazed that play, because there was no way slow-footed Eli Manning was ever going to escape a sack. And they pressure him, and he's going down for sure, and he scrambles around, and I don't know how he got out of it. And I was just mesmerized by the breakdown in protection and the fact that Eli Manning found a way to get out. So I'm describing how he got out of this. I can't believe it. And he chucks it down the field, and and I didn't even wait to look at the ball. I rewound it on my DVR to look at how did he get out. So I didn't even see the freaking catch. I was like, it's a first down, but I'm looking at protection, and I'm looking at how he got out of this thing. And I was like, this is the most amazing play, how he got out of that, scrambling around. Meanwhile, David Tyree is helmet catching the football, and I never even saw it.
Because I didn't have a clue.
No,
I didn't have a clue.
So I didn't tell you like the finishing part, because I was too busy rewinding, looking at it. How did Eli Manning get out of that? That guy can't get out of anything.
So, to recap, arguably the greatest play in the history of the Super Bowl, and the greatest upset in the history of Super Bowls, was described by my good friend Mark Schlereth thusly. Eli, running around, first down. Awesome.
Right.
So, if you know anybody long enough, there will be a moment in that relationship where you say to yourself, why the hell am I friends with this guy? That was the moment. And oh, by the way, the great Plexico interview that I thought, I don't think it aired once. It was a waste of videotape, a waste of my time, and a waste of his time, all because of you, my friend.
Yeah.
So for that, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And you know what? I never saw the catch until I actually watched the highlights of the game during the subsequent days after. Like, oh my gosh, that was an amazing catch. I'm like, when did that happen? Oh,
yeah,
it was
no
during
shit.
the scramble play that I was rewinding 4 times.
As Adam Sandler said in The Wedding Singer, information that would have been important yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
Well, somehow we've managed to fight our way through that obstacle. And somehow you have gone from being a terrible play-by-play guy to one of the best analysts in the business today. And that, my friend, is just showing your range. And thank you for showing everybody how bad you screwed over one of your best friends.
Yeah. You know what? I apologize. But
well, only 13 years later, it's okay. And I still forgive you.
Cheers to you, Clink. Love you, buddy.
All right, brother. Be well, be good, and just stick to the analysts and let Adam Amin do the play-by-play.
I'm following the ball now, Trey. I'm following the ball.
So that'll do it for this edition of Half Forgotten History. Thanks to my good friend Mark Stink Schlereth for telling us all just what a terrible play-by-play guy he is. But for his troubles, we are sending the Ronald McDonald House a check in Mark Schlereth's name. And thanks to our good friends at Maker's Mark. Remember to pour yourself into everything you do and reach for a bourbon that's created with that personal touch. In fact, take your Maker's Mark right now and enjoy a drink. Raise it to those incredible athletes who tell us these incredible stories. The only thing we ask is to remember that Maker's Mark makes their bourbon very carefully, and they ask you to enjoy it the same way. Coming up next on Half Forgotten History, the #1 pick of the 2001 NFL Draft, whose marketing campaign, the Michael Vick Experience, now really serves as a title for his entire life. Michael Vick will join us next.